Welcome back to the Bible Breakdown channel. Today's video will be the calling of the disciples. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most pivotal moments in history, a story about ordinary people who received an extraordinary invitation that changed not only their lives but the course of the world forever. We're talking about the calling of the first disciples. Imagine this scene. The sun is rising over the Sea of Galilee, its golden light dancing on the gentle waves. The air is cool and smells of salt and fish. Along the shore, fishermen are ending a long, hard night of work. Among them are two brothers, Simon, who would later be called Peter, and Andrew. They're casting their large, heavy net into the water, their muscles aching from the repetitive motion. This is their life, their trade, their identity. It's what their fathers did and their grandfathers before them. It's a life of toil, uncertainty, and waiting. Some nights the nets come up full, a bounty that provides for their families. Other nights, like this one, they come up empty, a stark reminder of their dependence on the whims of the sea. On this particular morning, a crowd is gathering. They're not here for the fish, they're pressing in to listen to a man named Jesus. The crowd becomes so large that Jesus, looking for a way to be heard by everyone, spots Simon and Andrew's boat pulled up on the shore. He steps into it and asks Simon to push out a little from the land. From this floating platform, Jesus begins to teach the people, his voice carrying clearly across the water. Simon, tired and probably a bit frustrated from the fruitless night, listens. He's heard of this teacher, this Nazarene who performs miracles and speaks with an authority no one has ever heard before. When Jesus finishes speaking, he turns his attention directly to Simon. He doesn't offer sympathy for the bad catch or comment on the weather. Instead, he gives a simple, almost strange command. Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. Now, you have to put yourself in Simon's shoes. He's the professional fisherman here. He knows this lake like the back of his hand. He knows the fish aren't biting. They've been out all night, the best time for fishing, and caught nothing. Now, in the broad daylight, when fish are harder to catch, this carpenter from Nazareth is telling him how to do his job. Simon's response is full of weariness, but also a spark of respect, a hint of nascent faith. He says, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything." You can almost hear the sigh in his voice. But then he adds, "But because you say so, I will let down the nets." This is a moment of decision. It's logic versus faith. Experience versus a command from someone who seems to see a bigger picture. Simon chooses to trust. He signals to his brother Andrew, and together they push the boat out into the deeper water and cast their nets one more time. What happens next is beyond anything they could have imagined. As they begin to haul the nets in, they feel an immense weight. The nets are so full of fish that they begin to tear. It's a catch so massive, so impossibly large, that their single boat can't handle it. They have to signal to their partners in another boat, the brothers James and John, to come and help them. Soon, both boats are so filled with fish that they are on the verge of sinking. The sheer scale of this miracle is overwhelming. This isn't just a lucky catch. This is a sign, a display of divine power that completely shatters Simon's understanding of the world. In the midst of this chaotic abundance, surrounded by flapping, silver fish, Simon Peter has a profound realization. He's not in the presence of just a great teacher, he's in the presence of the holy. He falls to his knees before Jesus, right there in the boat filled with fish, and says, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." He's overwhelmed by a sense of his own unworthiness in the face of such purity and power. He feels completely exposed. James and John are equally astonished. The reality of who Jesus is crashes down upon them all. But Jesus doesn't turn away. He doesn't agree with Peter's assessment of his own unworthiness. Instead, he looks at this trembling, humbled fisherman and gives him a new purpose, a new calling. He says, "Don't be afraid. From now on you will fish for people." Think about that phrase, fish for people. Jesus uses the language of their profession, something they understand intimately, to explain their new mission. Their lives would still involve nets and seeking, but the catch would be something of eternal value. They would be drawing people into a new life, a new kingdom. In that moment, everything changes. They guide their sinking boats to the shore, and without a second thought for the greatest catch of their lives or all that would have made them wealthy, they leave it all behind. They leave their nets, their boats, their livelihood, and their families to follow Jesus. This story isn't just about Peter, Andrew, James, and John. It's a pattern that we see repeated. Soon after, Jesus is walking along and sees another man, Matthew, sitting at his tax collector's booth. In that era, tax collectors were despised. They worked for the Roman occupiers and were often corrupt, enriching themselves at the expense of their own people. They were seen as traitors, sinners of the worst kind. Jesus walks up to this man, a social outcast, and says just 2 words, "Follow me." There's no long speech, no negotiation, no list of requirements, just a simple, direct invitation. And Matthew's response is just as immediate. He gets up, leaves the booth, leaves the money, leaves his entire former life and follows Jesus. He even throws a great banquet at his house for Jesus, inviting all his friends, other tax collectors and sinners, to meet this man who saw past their reputation and offered them a new beginning. So, what does this all mean for us today? This story is a powerful reminder that Jesus doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. He didn't choose religious scholars or the politically powerful to be his closest companions. He chose fishermen, a tax collector ordinary, flawed people living ordinary lives. He saw their potential, not their past. He saw the loyalty of a fisherman, the meticulous nature of a tax collector, and knew these were qualities he could transform for a divine purpose. The call is often disruptive. It asks us to leave our boats, our comfort zones, our securities, our old identities. For Peter, it was his fishing business. For Matthew, it was his financial security. For each of us, it might be something different. It could be a career path, a relationship, a mindset, or a particular ambition that we've built our life around. The call of Jesus invites us to recenter our lives not on our own plans, but on His. And notice the response: immediate, total commitment. They didn't say, "Let me just sell this record-breaking catch of fish first," or "Let me finish out the fiscal quarter." They left everything. This wasn't a casual decision. It was a radical reorientation of their entire existence. It demonstrates that when we truly encounter the living God, our priorities are completely rearranged. What once seemed all-important suddenly pales in comparison to the invitation to walk with Him. This story challenges us to ask ourselves, what are our nets? What are we holding onto so tightly that it might prevent us from following a new direction? And are we listening for the call? It might not be a voice from the sky, but a quiet conviction and opportunity to serve. A nudge to step out in faith, when it doesn't make logical sense, just like Peter casting his nets in the daylight. The beautiful truth is that the invitation is still open. The same Jesus who called Peter and Matthew is still calling people today. He looks at us in the middle of our ordinary, sometimes messy lives and says, "Follow me." He's not asking for perfection. He's asking for a willing heart. He's inviting us into an adventure far greater than we could ever fish for on our own. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this incredible story. If it resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What does leaving your nets look like in your life? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content that dives deep into these timeless truths. Until next time, take care.